Hey everybody, in this video we're going to be looking at the homework for chapter 4, which is focused on activity-based costing. And remember, with activity-based costing, we're taking a deep dive into overhead and trying to find ways to most accurately allocate the overhead based on specific activities. So with that said, let's get started here. So for exercise 1, we have this company, Oro Company, that has 2 departments with this data, production data here. And the company has historically used a single plant-wide overhead rate based on direct labor cost. So the first question we need to answer, it's asking us, is just what would that single plant-wide overhead rate be? Again, it tells us based on direct labor cost. So we'd be taking our total overhead divided by the direct labor cost, and we need to add both departments together, so that's the summation here. So we've got overhead cost, and then divided by the, I must have done a typo, not 25,000. So divided by the total direct labor cost. So just adding these together, this plus this divided by this plus this, the overhead divided by labor cost. That would give us our one singular overhead rate. So now if we wanted to take that and break that apart a bit and give each department its own overhead rate, so one method of application as opposed to just doing just one singular rate here, let's take a look and see if we could apply this overhead using the different sources of direct labor hours for welding and machine hours for fabrication. And the whole idea here is that if departments vary relatively significantly and the overhead costs vary relatively significantly, maybe there's a better way to calculate the application based on those drivers. Okay, so for departmental overhead rate, then we have for welding, we're looking at, like we mentioned, per direct labor hour. So again, we're going to take we're going to take 160,000, not again, but just with singular with the welding department, because that's what we're looking at there. And we're going to divide that out by direct labor hours, and that would give us $64 per hour if we were going to use that direct labor hours as our driver there. And then for fabrication, we would do a similar process of taking 240,000 divided by machine hours, which in this instance is 2,000. Well, that was funny. Sorry, the screen jumped down there when I pushed enter. So then you can see there again 240,000. So that's the overhead cost divided by the machine hours, and this is just us doing our analysis and coming up with better methodologies, because we've analyzed and talked to department managers and done the work to come up with these refined assumptions, essentially. So in exercise 2, we have a different company here. Loco Company sells 2 products, standard and deluxe, and it identifies the following overhead costs, activities, and drivers for 2011. And so here we can see expected costs and different activities, expected drivers, and these are speaking to the activity. And so 1,250 parts essentially. For storage, we expect $3,000 of cost for storage, and the amount that we have here is 2,500 of square feet essentially. And so when we get down here and see, it breaks out between standard and deluxe in certain ways essentially. So estimated production data down here is going to be volume in units produced. So this is our total 20,000, 15,000 standard, 5,000 deluxe, and then we've got total parts used. So again, you can kind of see the total 1,250 up here and how it breaks out between standard and deluxe. Storage space of 2,500, how that breaks down between standard and deluxe. Purchase orders, square feet, so on and so forth. And you can see workspace, 12,500. So to now extrapolate from that information then and come up with these overhead rates, we're going to want to take our expected costs. So I can't link to there, so I type everything in. So we're, again, remember that we're in budgeting mode in Thanksgiving of the year, before the year starts. We want to come up with these numbers so we've got them ready to rock right when the year begins. So we're doing expected costs and expected drivers and activity, etc. And so for handling, we expect a total overhead cost of $12,000, and we want to analyze based on total parts. So we're just basically taking the 12,000 divided by the 1250 to get us to 960 in total. So this is not broken down specifically by standard or by the two different types of products. We're just looking to say, okay, how much overhead are we going to apply based on these factors? So here we've got storage. So we're just taking our 3,000 divided by 2,500. Again, that's 3,000 expected divided by expected driver of 2,500, or expected activity in that driver. For inspecting, we've got 24,000 divided by 500 batches. For purchasing, we have 30,000 divided by 1,250. For insurance, we've got 6,000 divided by 12,500. For cleaning, we've got 3,000 divided by 12,500. And for utilities, we've got 9,000 divided by 1,250 machine hours. Okay, so now we've got these broken out basically by individual for each one of these per driver activity unit, essentially, if you want to think of it that way. And then we can go back to our specific standard and deluxe to basically break these down based on the amount of the usage that the two different types of products are using. So for handling costs, for instance, that is based on parts, and we can see that standard is using 750 parts. And then similarly, so we'll go 960 per part, and the deluxe uses 500 parts. Okay. Storage costs assigned $1.20, and the amount of square footage. That sounds funny for some reason. I think that's the right way to say it. Sometimes you say something that just sounds weird in your mind. Square footage. Square feet. Maybe that's right. Okay. Anyway, $1.20 per square foot. And how many square feet are used in the standard? We're looking at 1,750. And then for the deluxe, we're looking at 750. So that's shown up here. And this is all data you need to have. You would figure this data out separately. This is your job as part of your day-to-day, or part of the budgeting process, at least, in devoting a month or two or something like that to this process, is really gathering a lot of information. You got to get, and you have to talk with other individuals in the business. That's how you come up with a lot of this kind of information. So just FYI, we're doing the math right now, but there's work that goes into collecting this information. So, okay, so inspecting costs are $48 per batch, and there are 250 batches for standard. Again, $48 per batch, and there are 250 batches for deluxe. Purchasing costs assigned $24, and purchase orders. How many purchase orders? 875. And again, $24 times how many purchase orders, and that's $375. Okay, and insurance, we've got 48 cents per square foot. And from the insurance perspective, we've got, where are we at? Workspace used, 10,000 square feet for the standard. And for deluxe, we've got 2,500. Cleaning costs assigned, 24 cents per square foot. So same metric there, basically. I'm just going to drag this down and then Oh, that was funny. Yeah, since we're using the same metric, it just dragged down and went to the new updated rate, so that automatically updated correctly. So great. Okay, so $7.20 per machine hour and 500. $7.20 per machine hour with 500 machine hours. And then for the deluxe, we've got 750 machine hours, so extra. And now we just need to sum all of our total overhead costs. And then one thing to note here, so it comes up to the 87,000 here. You can see down with the Excel summation there. So the total overhead we've applied now is the total overhead cost noted up here, right? So just kind of drawing your attention there to just saying we're taking this total overhead cost and just splitting it up by activity and then by product type, essentially, deluxe and standard. Okay, so then we can just get to the last part of our calculation here and say the total overhead cost is for each type, and then we can look and say how many units do we expect to produce? 15,000. So we expect each unit to cost $3.54 from an overhead perspective on standard, and we expect $6.78 from a deluxe perspective. So kind of interesting. And then, okay, so now we're going to go into exercise 3. And in exercise 3, we want to look back to exercise 2, but we want to assume that the company uses a single plant-wide overhead rate based on machine hours, so we can kind of compare the different methodologies. So again, 87,000, total machine hours of 1,250. So if we were doing a single overhead application rate, it would be 6960. Again, that was total overhead 87,000 divided by total machine hours of 1,250. And then we'd have to look at, so total overhead assigned then per, if we were to break this out still between our two products, we need to multiply the total machine hours of 500 times the rate. So if we were doing this more simple method, we would be arriving at, let me look here for the deluxe, of 750. And then we need, so that would be our totals of cost applied just solely based on machine hours, and then dividing that by our total expected 15,000, our total production. Funny. And then again, similar total production for deluxe of 5,000. So here you can really kind of just see how significant the difference can be made between the different rates based on, see, we still have the 87,000, but you can see how significantly different those rates come out if you apply them based on the standard, or the activity-based costing versus the standard costing, and 678 versus 1044 and 354 versus 232. So it becomes a relatively significant breakdown or difference when you look at, and again, total overhead then compared to here, we got 53,000 compared to 34,000 and 33,900 compared to 52,000. So those are some pretty big differences. And applying this overhead one way or the other would skew how we price these products, because we would be putting a lot more costs towards the deluxe and less towards the standard in our single plant wide rate versus that not being the case with our total breakout for the activity-based costing. So, all right, let's jump on to the next tab. All right, everyone. Now on to the second tab here of exercises 4 and 5. So in exercise 4, we've got this company, your company, sells 2 products, 1 and 2. And we have 2 departments that serve factory workers, materials, and support, and to follow our various production data. So we've got all this collected data for expected cost and driver usage, etc. So let's say we're using the ABC method. So calculate the following ABC rates. So for purchasing and receiving, we've got 14,000 of expected costs with total usage of 1,000. So $14 there. Then we've got $7,000 of storage and 1,000 feet of storage space. 10,500 divided by 300 in total parts. Then we've got 21,000 divided by 3,000. Whoop, not 300. Oh shoot, got rid of my formula. What was that? This is machine maintenance. So 21,000 divided by 3,000. 3,500 divided by 5,000 of square feet for cleaning, and 14,000 divided by 5,000 square foot of production. Okay, so then we've got to calculate the overhead assigned to each product. So we have the specific overhead rates using the ABC method, and now we're going to split those into product 1 and 2. So you can see here, if we're doing POs, we've got 800, so 14 times 8. And here, let me do this just to make it more clear. So we've got 14 times the 800 noted up here. And then we've got 14, or I don't know, I like to link it so you all can really see where this has come from. So 14 times the 200. Storage is at $7 per square foot, and we've got 400 for product 1, and we've got 600 for product 2. $35 per part for moving, and we've got 100 parts for product 1 and 200 for product 2. Machine maintenance, we've got $7 per machine hour, and 1,000 here for product 1. Excuse me. Okay, let's see here. So 7,000 total there. So $7 per machine hour, and we got 2,000 hours. Cleaning, we've got 70 cents times 3,000, and again 70 cents times 2,000. And finally, our factory security, we've got, again, the same 3,000. And actually, I could just drag this down because it's already linked. So that was showing 2180 times, it's using the same driver there, so that works. And then our total overhead, we're just going to add those up for each, and it actually splits out evenly, 70,000 or 35,000 to each product. And then if we take our total costs divided by the assumed units of production, so we're going to say we assume 1,000 units of product 1, and we're going to take our total cost divided by 1,000, and 500 of product 2. So again, total cost divided by the expected production, and then we can see for each unit that we produce, we're going to apply these amounts of overhead using all the various activity pools and the drivers and specific activities related to each product. All right, let's move down to exercise number 5. Your company sells 2 products in 2 departments for factory workers. So here we've got, again, similar breakdown to follow our various production data. And we want to determine the departmental overhead rates, assuming the materials department assigns overhead based on purchase orders, and the support department assigns overhead based on square feet used in production. So this is the departmental overhead rate kind of methodology here. So we're doing total. So let's take our total overhead in materials department is going to be 14,000 plus 7,000 plus 10,500. And then we're going to we're going to divide that by the total purchase orders in, it's by purchase orders. So we're looking at purchase orders in the materials department of 1,000 to get $31.50 per PO for the materials department. Again, that came from just purchase orders, 1,000, and total adding all the costs there together. And then you can see this is a similar, same data basically, but we're just doing it in a different methodology basically, right? Okay, so then if we're going to do the total per square foot production for the support department, we're going to do a similar thing here where we add up all of the overhead, one too many there, for that department, and then we're going to divide it by square footage. So 5,000 total, and that gets us $770 per square foot. And finally, we're going to want to calculate our total overhead assigned to products 1 and 2, and overhead per unit with an assumption that you made, like we mentioned above, 1,000 product 1 units and 500 product 2 units. So here we want to go and take our $31.50, and then we're going to separate that out based on how the 1,000 that we, so up here we divided by 1,000. Now we want to break that 1,000 into the specifics for those departments. We have 800 in product 1, and we have per PO 200 for product 2. And then for our support department per square foot, we have 3,000 and 2,000. So we're going to go 770 times 3,000 for product 1, and then 770 times 2,000 for product 2. And then we're just going to add those together to get our total costs per product. And then we're going to look and see what's our per unit. Again, we're going to just divide that by the units of production. And 1,000 for product 1 and 500 for product 2. So you can see a relatively significant difference here, again, to kind of compare these two methodologies. So if we were just doing it by department, this is what we would get based on these drivers. But if we use it at a more detailed driver level based on all the activities in those specific departments and by the specific products that use the various activities, then we get this breakdown there. So you can see a really pretty significant difference between $70 and $43 of cost assigned, and $35 and $48.30. And then remember, the total, as we're breaking this out, is the same. So keep that kind of in mind there. It's just how do we allocate? How do we break this out and allocate those costs to specific products based on all the factors that we're looking at here. So, all right, let's take a look at the next step. All right, guys, in this problem, we're going to look at some ABC costing and look at some net profit through the calculations derived from these different overhead rate allocation methods. So the first, we got a bunch of data here. We make 3 different products. We've got estimated cost and estimated production data all gathered up here, and sales, etc., and all the rest of it. And so we're going to use that data to do some calculations. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is calculate ABC rates for each cost pool. So again, we're looking at customer service, and so we're going to look at that per customer. So our total customer service dollars estimated overhead is 240,000, and then we're going to divide that by the number of customers in total, so 200. Okay, and then we're looking at design. We've got 160,000 divided by how many modifications, so 50 in total. Then we've got storage cost of 80,000, and we're going to be breaking that up based on square feet used, so 2,000 total. Then we've got ordering and receiving is 40,000 divided by the number of orders, and there it is 160. Then we've got packaging, a total cost of 120,000 divided by the number of units, which is 12,000. Excuse me. And then a supervision total cost of $80,000 divided by the number of employees of 5. Okay, so now we've got our per unit allocation rates there. So now let's break these apart and use them to assign per product. So how many customers? So 60, 1,200 times 60. And then we've got 1,200 times 100. So we're just basing it off 1, 2, 3. And finally 1,200 times 40. And then we pretty much just kind of go down the line, looking at how many modifications. We have 15, 25, and 10. I'm going to do one thing here as well. So to make this a little bit quicker, as you can see, we've got these, we're having to hard key or just type in the numbers because these are not actual cells that we can link into. But one little trick here, or I think at least it'll make this a little quicker, is just to go through and drag that formula down. So now we're going to have it pick up the right rates as it goes down. And then we just need to go through and update the driver numbers here basically. So if we're looking at modifications, we need 15, 25, and 10. So the first one, 15, then 25, and 10. Okay. And this is just using Excel, right? Because we've now just copied this same formula we just created above, and we're just dragging it down, which drags it down across these. And so we just need to update the numbers, like I said. So if we're looking at per square foot, it's 1,600 and 400 per product. Okay, ordering and receiving is it's per order, and the number of orders is 60, 80, 20. So 60 is actually already in there from the first one. That was based on customers, which seems orders. So sorry, it was 60, 80, 20. And then packaging was based on units, and it's 6,000, 4,000, 2,000. And finally, supervision, which is based on employees, and we've got 3, 1, and 1. So let's just switch those up. Okay, and then the total assigned is just adding up all of the subcategories there to get us totals. All right, and now we've got total overhead assigned, essentially, or that we're assigning to these individual products, and then we can figure out the total cost of each of these products. So we will take direct labor or direct materials plus direct labor plus materials overhead we learned in chapter 1, and we're going to come up here and get those first two factors. So materials are 640 for product A, and then 400,000 for direct labor, and then selecting our total overhead assigned there of product A. Oops, did I do that right? Let's see. So it's not mathing out there. So 640,000. Oh, I'm missing a 0. 400,000. There we go. And again, I'm going to just kind of use Excel and then go through and do an update. So what we need here in the second one is not 640 and 400, but instead 400 plus 480, which is right here. And then the formula just pulls across to get the updated overhead. And then finally, we've got 320,000 plus 720,000. That's the direct materials and labors for C there. And then again, the formula just drags over and updates. And then to get net profit, remember that net profit is sales. So 1,600,000. I think I got enough zeros there. Minus our costs. So 277,000. Again, I'm going to kind of use Excel and just update the sales number for B, and finally update the sales number for C, which is 1,320,000. And here we can see our net profit per product based on applying the overhead in that way. Now let's do this kind of more of a simplified method and compare those outcomes. And so if we're going to calculate a single plant-wide overhead rate based on direct labor, then we're going to want to take our total estimated overhead, so 720,000, which is the sum of all the amounts there. And we're going to divide that by total direct labor costs, 1,600,000, to get 45 cents of overhead per direct labor dollar. And then we're going to use that. Again, we're using direct labor dollars as our driver there, as our base for allocation. And we're going to say product A has 400,000 direct labor. That doesn't really work to drag across because it starts going out there. So let's just do it this way. So 45 cents times 480,000. And finally, 45 cents times direct labor dollars for product C, which is 720,000. And then we can kind of take the same formula we were using above, because it already has the amounts put in the formulas that we pulled out of here for the materials and labor. We do need to fix the formula, so it pulls from the right cell. So we'll drag that part of the formula down to get the total overhead cost assigned. And finally, I'm just going to copy this formula here because it's pulling in the right sales for each cell. And so we're going to sales in the cell, and then we're going to just paste that in. It's going to take the updated cost that we just figured in because it's got a formula driven there. And you can really see a big difference in the outcomes here when we see net profit really shifting around. And in this instance, looking like a net loss for product C. But if we apply using the more targeted allocation ABC method, you can see that we actually made a healthy profit on product C. So you can kind of see through this example how, as a manager and as someone analyzing the business, you might decide in this instance, you might say, oh, product C is a loser. We need to stop making that product or something, or whatever. You might make some determinations based on this. Maybe we need to put more marketing into product C or something. Making decisions because it's a loss right now, versus if we actually look at some of these drivers in more detail, you can say, like, oh, wait, no, in reality, we're making money on profit C. And so, yeah, just having that information really can drive your decision making as a manager, and the whole company making decisions in different areas based on the outcome of doing a more deep dive on how we do this allocation of overhead. So, all right, that is the completion of the first section of our homework here. And I'm going to close out this video, and then I'll record a separate video where we will go into the discussion question, quick study, exercise, and problem for chapter 4. All right, thanks, everybody.